What's going on, you guys? Riley here, and oh my god, is that a Supra? Well, as a matter of fact, it sure is. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the 2021 GR Supra, which is essentially the top trim level for the new Supra with the most amount of horsepower, most amount of features, and supposed to be the most amount of fun. So today, we're going to do a full review on this 2021 Supra and see what we think about it, see if the new Supra is worth all of the hype, or for $60,000, would you pick something different? So let's go ahead, dive right in, and check out the new 2021 Supra. So first we'll walk around the car, I'll show off the exterior, talk about the engine, take a look at the inside, and then we'll take it out for a spin. Now, the Supra is a very interesting vehicle because it has been many years since a Supra was out. So now with the new Supra out, it's received a lot of controversy. Some people are saying, that ain't no Supra, that's a BMW, which I have to admit, I agree with. This is a BMW. Essentially very, very similar to a BMW Z4. Almost everything on the interior is all BMW. Engine from BMW. It's a 3-liter inline 6 with a turbocharger that makes 382 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque. This car is good for 0 to 60 times of 3.9 seconds in the quarter-mile time at 12.1. So definitely a very quick car, and I have to admit, I really, really like the styling. That's probably my favorite thing about this car, is just how cool it looks going down the road. It's got a good amount of road presence. It looks really aggressive and mean, but I do have some, I guess, flaws with the car, and one of the biggest flaws I have with this car is the amount of fake vents that Toyota put everywhere. So we got some fake vents right here next to the headlight. We got some fake vents down here in the lower grille section. Thankfully, at least this one's real. But of course, you have the Toyota badge up here at the front with a real pointed nose. It kind of looks cool, but just very different. It's like somebody punched a pig in the face, and it kind of has a scrunched up nose, but I actually like the way it looks. You've got these really nice LED headlights here, which if I unlock it, it'll turn on the daytime running lights, which look like so. So while it's going down the road, definitely looks very cool, and with those 3 headlight bulbs, looks very cool at night as well. One thing I will say, last night when I drove it at night, the headlight visibility is aimed very low, so you don't really see too far in the distance until you turn your high beams on, but it's just very interesting and different. You only see, you know, yay far in front of the car instead of seeing way out there. So very different, not what I was expecting. But going on about the fake vents, here are some more fake vents here on the hood, which it's just like, I get it, you want to make it look cool and sporty, and everyone knows that vents mean cool and sporty, but we got fake vents up there. We have more fake vents in this little what would typically be some kind of air scoop. And then to finish off the fake vents, we've got even one more back here by the taillight. More fake vents here. So it's just a little overkill in my opinion. I get it, you're going for the sporty look, but I mean, at least just punch the holes out in those things and make it somewhat real. Forgive me if I'm a little shaky. It's about 40 degrees out here today. It's been raining all day, which is why it's a little damp out here. I know for most of you guys that live up in Alaska, you're gonna say 40 degrees is like a summer day up here, but look, I'm from Texas, I'm cold, all right? Moving on, we have Michelin Pilot Super Sports on all 4 corners, so a really nice tire, good brakes. Overall, the wheel design's pretty cool. It's like a chrome in black finish. It's a combination and it actually works on this car. Usually I'm not a big fan of chrome, but I will admit I do like them. And then one of the interesting things about this car, so if you've read anything about the Supras, a lot of people complained about the buffeting noise on the inside. So basically what that is, when you're driving in the car with the windows down, you apparently could not even hear yourself think. You couldn't hear anything really, you just heard the wind noise. It was atrocious. So this owner that traded this car in here, he's got these little air deflectors that are in carbon fiber on both sides of the vehicle, right where the mirrors are, and that deflects the air away from inside the car enough so that buffeting does not happen. So very interesting. I don't know why Toyota did not do that from the factory. You would think somebody there at the Toyota BMW engineering team would have drove with the car's windows down and discovered, hey, there's a problem, but I guess that's what the aftermarket's for. And moving on to the rear, actually really like the rear. I think it's super aggressive, super sporty. I love the diffuser back here. It's very like Formula One car inspired with that little 4th brake light down there. I guess it's actually the 3rd brake light, excuse me. And then you have the massive potato launcher dual exhaust tips down there. Exhaust actually sounds pretty good. Take a listen. And this one being the GR, you get a nice little GR badge there on the side. So we'll go ahead and unlock the trunk here. One of the things I don't like about the car is there's no trunk release on the outside of the car. You've got one on the key fob, which looks like so, if I can get the focus. So a pretty standard little key fob here, unlock, lock, trunk, and alarm, nothing too fancy there. But if we open up the trunk, this is another one of my complaints here, there is not much trunk space in this car. So you're trying to fit golf clubs in here, good luck. You got two little subwoofers there. It's got a decent audio system. We'll talk more about it on the inside when we start driving it. So remind me of that. But overall, the trunk space in this car, not the most practical. If you're going to be using this as your daily, well, you better pack light because it's not a very big trunk. If you like golfing, well, not in this thing. You're going to have a difficult time. But overall, I really like the exterior looks. That is my favorite part of the new Supra. It's just the way it looks on the outside. It's super aggressive. I think Toyota really did a good job, or BMW, whoever did it. I mean, it's just such a weird car because once we hop inside, everything on the inside is straight up BMW. And it's just kind of funny, honestly. And opening up this absolutely massive hood. I mean, that's one of the biggest hoods I've ever seen. Kind of reminds me of like the Gen 5 Viper hoods, just how overly absurd large they are. Even continues over here. That is the fender on the car, so very interesting. But here is that 3-liter inline-6 turbocharged engine. Once again, 382 horsepower, so that's a very healthy amount of horsepower, and it's actually up from the 2020 Supra. That's a lot of 20s. Last year's model, they claimed made like 335 horsepower. This year, it's 382. They didn't really change anything, even though they say that they did. It's kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't want to get into it. But regardless, just shy of 400 horsepower and torque. It's a very quick car, very nicely made engine. It's in a lot of the BMWs that you can find. And it's kind of funny. I think if we look right here on the throttle body, actually, there's a nice little BMW badge. Oh, right there on the top part of the throttle body, it says BMW. I mean, a lot of this car is just BMW parts and BMW engineering, and then yet they slap the Toyota badge on the front, which is nicely visible, and they're proud to show that. But again, this is a straight up BMW infotainment, BMW chimes and sounds and buttons. It is a BMW with the Toyota badge, but is that a bad thing? So now that we've got a pretty good understanding of how this thing looks from the outside and what the performance figures are, let's go ahead and open it up and take a look at what it's like on the interior. So first we'll do a quick little overview. A lot of this probably looks pretty familiar if you're familiar with a lot of the newer BMWs, M2, M340i, etc. These seats actually are very awesome. They're very soft. It's some of the softest leather I've ever felt. They have a lot of cushion to them, so that is actually one huge plus for this car. But let's go ahead. We will hop inside of the new Supra. And the first thing I will say, so this little pillar here, I have smacked my head on twice now. It is very low, and when you're getting in and out of the car, it's very easy to whack your head there. So something to take note of. Well, let's go ahead and we'll shut the door here. So I'll start by talking about what's going on here in front of you. So this right here, straight out of a BMW, it's the older BMW Infotainment System. I honestly do not like it. It's very confusing, very tough to navigate through the menus. It's not a touch screen, so you have to use this little dial here. You rotate it, you click it left and right, move it up and down. There are some buttons that associate with it between your nap and music, things like that, and there's a back button here. Just not very intuitive, and it's very confusing. When you go through like 5 or 6 different menus, it's tough to get back to where you were. It's just very overly complicated, and I'm not a huge fan of it. This also straight out of a BMW with all of your little presets there, as well as down here the climate controls. You've got heated seats here, so 3 levels of that. Of course, defrosters, where you want the temperature aimed, things like that. I think it's pretty cool how they incorporated the AC vent. It's kind of like a whole fake vent through the middle section here, but I think it's a nice design touch. It looks really nice and looks good on the dash there. And then here in front of you, so the gauge cluster, it's a pretty solid gauge cluster, although I will say I do not like this side of the screen here. It's just a big blank space, and I can't figure out what's supposed to go there aside from when you open up the door, it'll let you know, hey, the door's open. But when you're driving around, I feel like they could have used that space for something, and maybe they did. I just can't figure it out. But to me, that just looks a little bland over there, and it looks empty. But moving out, nice steering wheel. It's very narrow actually, just very thin. Nice little grips up here at 10 and 2, and of course leather wrapped. Toyota badge here in the center, which if you replace this with a BMW badge, it looks straight up like a BMW interior. It's kind of funny. Wireless phone charger in this little area here, so you can lay your phone down and it will start charging, if you can kind of see that. Nice carbon fiber trim here on the interior. You got your sport mode, which is a giant button, parking brake, the auto stop start, parking sensors, traction control, etc. So I really like this area here. It looks nice with the carbon fiber. It looks really good. One interesting thing about the visibility out this car is this area right here. That is not a lot of room. So when you're sitting here from the driver's perspective, you can see that you don't really get a great view out of that area there. Looking over your shoulder, well, you don't really see all that much over there. Looking out the back is actually fairly decent, and you can actually see through into your trunk here. It's kind of like a Corvette in that regard. You can see that subwoofer there, which again, I guess I'll go ahead and talk about the audio system now. So it is a JBL audio system, and it has a ton of treble and no bass, which you would think it'd be quite the opposite with these two massive, well, not massive, but they're probably 8-inch subwoofers or so right behind both seats. You just don't really feel much bass. It's just all treble, and it's not the best. Seating comfort, I'm actually very comfortable in here. Once again, I love these seats. And then over my shoulder here, there's also a decent little blind spot, but thankfully you do get blind spot monitoring with this car, amongst other safety features like forward collision alert, the adaptive cruise control, lane departure warning, all that good stuff. So it does have a lot of nice features, but for the money, where these things are brand new, for a GR Supra, you're looking somewhere in the neighborhood of $55,000 to $60,000, kind of in that range. Now they do have a 4-cylinder option, which I've yet to drive, of course. That's still a little bit expensive. But overall, that is kind of your basic overview of the Supra interior. So now I think all that's left to do is go out and drive this thing and see if it's worth spending $60,000 on a Toyota Supra, or should you just opt for the BMW option, or should you opt for something different that's $60,000? Hint, hint, C8 Corvette, because that's kind of the car that stole this car's thunder. This car got debuted, and everyone's like, oh my God, the Supra's back, and everyone freaked out. And then, what was it, a couple of months later, then the Corvette came out and they said, look, we put the engine in the back. And then, well, a lot of people kind of forgot about the Supra after that happened. So for 60 grand, it will be an interesting comparison. It's a very tough price point for performance cars. There's a lot of good options. So let's go ahead and take this thing out for a little spin and see what we think. All right, so before we take the Supra out for a little spin, one last thing I would like to note: there is no center console in this car. So you get a little cubby back here, which you can fit like sunglasses or like a box of mints or gum or something. But there is no center console that actually opens. You just get the cup holders right here, and then it starts your little shifter area. So that's kind of interesting. So not the best with storage. Of course, there's like a tiny little door pocket and then a glove box. But like I said, pack light if you're gonna buy one of these things and try to daily it, because there's not a lot of room for things. But let's go ahead and set off in the Supra. So I've been driving it around a little bit today. I've probably spent maybe an hour to hour and a half or so behind the wheel, and just kind of getting a feel for it. Haven't done anything wild. As I said, it rained this morning, so the roads are a little damp, so I don't think we'll be able to do too much like launch controls and things like that, but we can definitely roll into it and see how the power feels. And what? There's that BMW chime I was talking about there. So that is the number one thing you notice about this car, is that it's literally a BMW. And recently I drove the BMW M2. Pretty good car. It wasn't my favorite for the price range. Very, very similar to this. Definitely handles very well. It's very playful. The car weighs like 3,350 pounds, which really isn't a lot for almost 400 horsepower. So it's very light on its feet, very playful. Quite frankly, taking it on some back roads earlier, it's one of the better handling cars for this price range. The steering is very direct after you get off of center. So on center, there's a little bit of play, like I'm still just driving straight, and then it starts to be pretty direct. Now this engine is mated to the ZF 8-speed automatic transmission, which has been out for a while. It's in a lot of the Dodge products and a lot of the BMW products. It is a very good transmission. It's very responsive. Here in normal mode, it's a little bit on the lazy side, but that's okay. This is normal mode. It's your daily driver, everyday setting. The engine has a little bit of turbo lag, but honestly, for a turbocharged engine, it's not bad if you just kind of get onto it a little bit, and it comes to life pretty quickly. And then going through these corners here, again, we're not flying through these things like I would, of course, love to be doing, but a little bit damp outside, and of course trying to, you know, not wreck anything. But it does handle very good. There's very minimal body roll, 3,300 pounds in a little go-kart essentially. It's a very short car. It's very tight in here. You're in a really small car. Now, if we put the car into sport mode with the massive sport mode button, this is when everything becomes a little bit more race car. So on the screen here, I'm looking at everything that just changed. So dampening is now in sport, steering, engine, transmission, everything is now in sport. So it does change quite a bit within the vehicle. One of the things that you really notice is that right now I'm just cruising down the road doing 50 miles per hour and it's hovering at like 3,000 RPM. So it's just waiting for you to just get on it. It's not really like a daily driver sport mode where it'll realize, all right, you're just cruising. It's like, no, I'm waiting for you to floor this thing. So since the car is waiting for it and I'm waiting for it, we might as well go ahead and do that. Oh, the little pops. I love the exhaust. Actually, a very good exhaust system. You get a nice forced induction noise. It just kind of, you hear that air getting sucked into the intakes and the turbocharger. And then let's do that one more time. Why not? Rolling into it. Oh, it's quick. It's really quick. That's awesome. I love the noises that it makes. It's you hear a lot of stuff going on in front of you, but as well as the exhaust behind you, you get the nice pops and crackles. Let's try out these paddle shifters. More pops and crackles. So upshift is pretty quick. Downshift's really quick. That's lightning fast. Oh, I love that. That's sick. So for a few negatives on the car, not the best in terms of daily driver with storage space, things like that. I don't really care for the audio system in this thing, which really let me down because I thought it was going to be really good. Seeing the speakers right behind the seats, seeing the JBL audio little logo on the doors, it's like, ooh, I bet this is going to be really good. There's all treble, and that's it. There's no bass to this car, and when you're sitting here, you kind of want some bass, and there's just nothing. It's very crisp, but just, again, not the best audio system. The suspension, we're in sport mode now, and it's pretty bumpy. Even in normal mode, it's still pretty bumpy. I think a lot of that has to do with just how short the wheelbase is on the car, but it's not a super comfortable ride, to be quite honest with you. So in my opinion, this would be a great secondary car, but I don't think I would buy one of these as my only car, everyday, daily driver, because you do make some sacrifices. I think this is that perfect car where, again, I don't think I'd buy one of these brand new. I think this is a great car where 2, 3, 4 years from now, when you can pick these up lightly pre-owned, when the values come down a little bit, that's going to be this car's sweet spot. I enjoy driving this more than the M2 I drove pretty recently. To me, this is a little bit more fun. I like the way this engine sounds better. I think the ride is better. The interior is probably a little bit better. I'm more comfortable in here than I was in the M2. And a lot of people regard the M2 as like one of the best BMWs ever made, and I truly think that this is better. And if you gave me both options, I would pick the Supra over that. However, for $55,000, $60,000, there's a lot of other cars that I would rather have. I know I'm biased. I've got a freaking Corvette hat and a Corvette jacket on, but for 60 grand, getting a base model Corvette to me is a way better deal. I think that car is just, it has more road presence. It's more practical with the front trunk and the rear trunk. You can take the roof off of it. You get a V8, more horsepower, more torque. There's a lot going for that car. So it's kind of unfortunate this car came out at the exact same time as the new Vet, because I think if this car had came out just a little bit earlier, it would have been perfect. Dude, that's actually really quick. It's playful. I have a lot of fun in this thing, don't get me wrong, but it's actually really fun. I love cars like this where they're smaller and they're tossable. It's fun. It's a fun car. It's not a great daily, it's not a great do-all, be-all, but it's a great car to just buy, have fun. If you're into the aftermarket, people are making ridiculous power with these things when they get into the aftermarket with tuning and bigger turbos, things like that. I mean, it can be a very, very fast car, but even bone stock, it's plenty of fun. There's just some drawbacks to it. The infotainment system, not great, but I can only imagine how much fun I'd be having if this car had some kind of exhaust system and a tune. I think that would be the perfect setup in this car. It'd be a lot of fun. But overall, bone stock car, I'm very impressed with it. I'm more impressed today than I was last night when I took the vehicle and drove it for the first time, I was kind of like, eh, but it's something that it's actually growing on me, and I actually really like it. I'm having fun with it. You see me smiling, so that's a good thing. It's not a car that's very fun when you're just daily driving it and driving it slowly. There's a decent amount of road noise to it. It's a car that's very fun when you're using it as a sports car. When you start to push it, that's when it really becomes alive. Sport mode and normal mode does a huge difference to just about everything in this thing. So we'll put it back in normal, put it back in auto, just go back into kind of the cruise mode, which again, it's still pretty bumpy. You can probably see me bumping around over here. It's not a very comfortable ride. But overall, I think that pretty much sums up my thoughts and opinions on the new 2021 Supra. So great car, just depends what you're looking for. If you're spending 50 to 60 grand on something, are you looking for something that's going to be a secondary car? Are you looking for something that's going to be something you're going to modify? If that's what you plan to do with the car, I think this is perfect. If you plan to buy it as your only vehicle, daily driver, I think there's better options personally that I would go with. It's just, there's some great things about it, there's some not so great things about it. It's just one of those things, it's not for everyone. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. This was definitely something a little different than what's usually on the channel. I don't know if I've ever had a Toyota review on the channel, maybe one, but I can't recall any. Who am I kidding? This is a BMW. But trying to venture more out into the Audi, BMW, Mercedes line of vehicles, and it's fun to drive these things and see what they do good, what they do bad, what they could improve on, fake vents. But overall, I really like the new Supra. I think it's a ton of fun. I think a lot of people are giving this car a lot of hype, and I do think it's deserving of a lot of that. But again, if it's up to me and if I had a little RP list of top cars for 60 grand, this wouldn't be at the very top, but it would be up there. It's a very good choice. So as always, guys, if you are in the market for a new or pre-owned vehicle, or this pre-owned 2021 Supra, this particular car's got 2,000 miles on it. It got recently traded in for actually a 2019 ZR1 Corvette. So definitely a little bit of an upgrade there. But I'd be happy to help you guys out with your newer pre-owned vehicle purchase. So come see me over at Parkway Chevrolet. Thank you guys for watching the video. Hope to see you guys in the next one. Take it easy.